Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of BC Buckets. I'm Matthew Brune. Joining me once again is Colin Mitchell. Colin, today we have two bigs, Yves Missi and DaRon Holmes. Missi from Baylor, DaRon Holmes from St. John's. We were able to see DaRon Holmes in person in Charleston early in the season at the Charleston Classic. Got to see him twice, actually, 2 games, and now we're talking about him as a potential first round pick. I mean, he's to some people, I know we did like our Devin Carter video, and we're gonna do a Bub Carrington video in a bit, but like DaRon Holmes is some people's like steal of the draft.
Yeah.
So
Is he yours?
He's not mine. He's not. He's not mine. But I do think he's better than Yves Missi. Now they're different, right? They're very different. Yves Missi strictly stays around the rim. This is a guy who 1 year as a freshman at Baylor. I'll never forget watching that first game he had against Auburn, where immediately he came off the bench, and I was like, "Oh, this dude is a first round draft pick." Like he just jumps off the page, and every game watching Yves Missi throughout the year is like, okay, flashes. 6'11", awesome vertical playmaker on both ends of the court. Kind of waiting for him to put it all together. Then you have DaRon Holmes, who, for lack of a better word, I mean, he's a finished product, right? Like that's just who he is. He's a do-it-all type of guy there. So I'm buying more so of, I don't know if it's more of me buying DaRon Holmes as much, or if it's more of me fading on Yves Missi. And I think it's more of the latter, unfortunately.
Yeah, I actually like DaRon Holmes, but let's talk about Missi first. So I actually really liked him at first when I first started watching him. Like you said, the athleticism really jumps off the page, and you're like, oh, okay, like this is a guy with the tools that can be something really good. And then as you watch him, I'll just get straight to the point. The big thing that bothered me the most was offense. I felt like defensively, like there was things there where you're like, oh yeah, I mean, like you could pass him at certain spots in the NBA. Obviously, he'll be in the G League, but there's certain things. But on offense, what really concerned me was just, I mean, pretty much everything. Like he get the ball at like the elbow or something, and it's like, all right, go to the rim.
Yeah.
Instead of really like being patient, and he sped up a lot very easily. And I realized that this wasn't his first sport because I believe it was soccer when I was reading about him. But offensively, I think it's going to take a long time. And I know he's a freshman, but he's a 20-year-old freshman. And, how many years are you going to want to wait for a guy like this? And not only that, like the team drafting him, are you drafting him for like somebody else? That, you know what I mean? Like if you draft him and he has 3 years to go, and he goes off to another team, you're developing a player that might not even be on your roster.
I think the defense side of the ball is the selling point. I think he has to be incredibly switchable. He has to be elite on the defensive side of the ball because he's a good shot blocker, like blocked 1.5 shots per game, but I think he only had a 7% block percentage, which is very average, like pedestrian. It's good, but it's not anything crazy. I think DaRon Holmes also had a 7% block percentage, so like similar numbers to Holmes here. I think the athleticism buys him a little bit of time, and the vertical ability. So it's like, can he be switchable? Is he quick enough? Because like you said, I think it shows that maybe he played soccer, growing up. I think he has good mobility, but at the end of the day, he's not a dominant shot blocker. He's not a dominant defensive rebounder. Like that was one of the more things that stood out to me was the defensive rebounding percentage for Missi this year. I had it written down here. Yves Missi, 16.5% defensive rebounding, and that's I mean, it's not even top 500 in the country.
And I think a lot of that is he's just relying solely on his athleticism. Watching him, it was almost like it was almost always a reaction to something. It was never seeing something and then doing it because he's recognizing it. And part of that, I think, is just, again, you're picking up the game really late. And obviously in college, if you're an athletic freak like he is right now, he's going to be able to make up for a lot. But in the NBA, that's my concern is when you're in the G League, like you're going to get some time, but how much time is an NBA roster going to get you before you just kind of stay in the G League? and then eventually, go overseas. And for me, it's hard for me to see a team stick with a guy that's athletic in a league that has a lot of athletic players. And Missi is athletic, but he's not elite by NBA standards. Like there's guys in this draft, like Khalil Ware is a
Yeah.
really big athlete, but he's more refined skill wise. And we thought he was really raw, right? And
Yeah.
he's way further along than Missi. So when you're an athletic guy at the college level and able to dominate, it's cool. But by NBA standards, you have to be elite. Like he's not Amin Thompson athletically, obviously completely different players. But
Yeah.
when we are watching them, we're like, oh, they're in the OTE, but they are NBA top like 10 NBA
Yeah.
athlete. So that's my really big main concern is how much time do you give a guy that's not really elite at any main thing, and you got to really buy that defense.
Yeah, I think only less than a 9 foot 2 inch standing vertical. Obviously, he has a good. I'm sorry, standing reach.
Yeah,
Has
I got what you meant.
30.5 inch vertical, which tries to make up for it. Only played 23 minutes per game last year. Offensively, because I haven't talked a ton about that. Yeah, I don't really see the upside. You look through players that the one strength he has obviously is a rim runner, and then he is a pretty good offense rebounder. He was 32nd in the country in offense rebound percentage, so give him credit there. But 61% free throw shooter, not much off the dribble. I think he averaged. Let me find it real quick. I should have this up already. Yeah, 3.5 assist rate and a 14% turnover rate. I mean, he can't make quick decisions, to your point.
Yeah.
So can't do anything with the ball in his hands right now. And that's just not what I want to bet on in a prospect. I at least with Holmes and with several players. I mean, I looked through a lot of different bigs, that have come and gone throughout the years, like Robert Williams and Nick Claxton, so on and so forth. Very, very, very few of them have assist percentages less than like 8, 9, and he's at
Yeah.
3.5.
Yeah.
So now when we flip the page to DaRon Holmes, this is a guy who has all of the offensive tools you could ask for, right? Like 3 years, or coming off his third year of college ball at Dayton, 6'9", played 33 games, 32 minutes per game, 20 points, 9 boards, 2.5 assists, 2 blocks, 54% from the field, 38.5% from three. How high are you on Holmes?
I think I'm pretty high in terms of the consensus. He's not like top 10 or anything for me, obviously,
Mhm.
but I have him. Let's scroll up real quick. I have him above guys like Isaiah Collier. I have him
Okay.
above Cody Williams.
Okay.
I mean, kind of that range, like 17. He's at 18 right now on my board.
Okay.
Obviously, things can change, but I really like his one. We say he's like a finished product. I think there's definitely things that he has to improve on, but he's like a Swiss Army knife in terms of the type of player that he is. I think he's really impressive, obviously shooting and being able to block shots and things like that. But I also really like his playmaking ability. I think it's really interesting how he's able to kind of put the ball on the floor
Mhm.
and pass the ball. Passing the ball was really interesting to me because I feel like he can kind of be that hub at like the mid block where it's like, okay, find a guy. And Dayton saw that a lot this year when they didn't really have a point guard for parts of the season. We saw a lot of that too when we saw them in Charleston, is
Yeah.
using him a lot. And
Mhm.
I think that that's something that really translates well into the NBA because it's kind of like, especially for the big man, it's kind of becoming that, okay, who's going to be the next Draymond Green? And obviously, defensively, he's not going to be that. But in terms of offensively, I think he can be a guy that, although he's kind of undersized, not really the biggest guy, he's able to do a lot on the offensive end and gives teams a lot of flexibility and versatility in terms of if they want to do 5 out, 4 out, or even just do some pick and roll things, even maybe with him as a ball handler potentially. And I find all that really interesting.
Yeah, quick processor, versatile offensive weapon, pick and pop threat. I mean, 38.5% from three clearly tells you that, but he's a good screener and can really force like the switch or the hedge or something like that. I do like the passing and the playmaking as well. I honestly, I remembered when we were watching him, I was like, he looked a little stiff. Like, I don't know. Whenever we watched him early in the year, it was like I felt like he was kind of stiff, kind of upright a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times. So that was a concern. But then I go back and I keep watching the film, and it's like Okay, well, I mean, he can shoot the heck out the ball, and I think the form is very repeatable and it's clean. So as long as he's not like really rushed, which in the NBA, if you're pick and popping, you're mostly shooting fairly open threes. I think he can very well be a good 3-point shooter.
Do you buy the shot? Because I know a lot of people aren't sometimes just because of how bad he was in previous years.
Yeah,
So last 2 years, I think it was like 28% that he was
yeah,
shooting from three, and then this year he's obviously in 2.5 shots a game he's making nearly 40% of them. How much do you think that translates?
yeah. I don't know if it's going to be 40%, but I think it translates enough to get him on the court, like
Yeah,
in a in a bind. My biggest question for Holmes is kind of what you said is where does he play? Is he a backup 5? Can he slide to the 4? Is he athletic enough to play the 4? I'm not sure about that. So that's the only thing keeping him like below the other bigs I think I have is I'm not really sure about his long-term upside at either position really. Like I think he can be a good backup at those spots, but like as a starter, you have to have a bigger 5 most likely, and then at the 4, I'm not sure he's athletic enough. And 32% of his actions of his usage were his post-ups, and obviously I don't think that's where he's going to be utilized a ton in the NBA.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't have him like his ceiling. I have it as like 6-man, very productive bench guy. And the reason why I have him so high on my board over the guys I named earlier is because I think I really buy that he's going to get to that. I think he plays the best. He'll play best at the 4. I actually have my comp as Beef Stew. Obviously, I think he's more skilled than him. But in terms of
I like it.
like, I think he moves pretty well defensively. He's not. I don't think he's ever going to be a liability. He's agile, and not only that, he's long enough to where if he does get in a bind and a more physically imposing player is on him, he's still able to hold his own to a certain extent. I think a lot of it's going to rely on how much he can shoot, because the only way you're going to be able to play the 4 right now is if you're going to be able to shoot the ball.
Yeah.
But that's where I kind of foresee him in my head
So
playing.
I have 3 players written down for Holmes. I like the first 2 a decent amount. I think ceiling wise, we're talking Al Horford build,
Ooh.
like 6'9". Defensively, I don't think he'd get there where Horford is, obviously, but offensively, you kind of see that processing, shooting, so on and so forth. Then I have Bobby Portis,
Mm.
and Portis has shot the ball well recently. So you give me that, and then you give me a little bit of athleticism. I think Portis is like the most likely outcome, like a really valuable backup forward that can help teams win
Mm-hmm.
games. Then I have Larry Nance, and Larry Nance, I've watched a lot of Larry Nance Jr. to be clear, not the older one. Shoot, I mean, he's shot the ball over 35%. Kind of, he's a good athlete, but it like he does look kind of stiff at times on the court and similar to Holmes. So those 3, I think you put them together. That's kind of where I have Holmes overall.
Where do you have him on your board right now? Because I know you said you weren't super high on him.
20 or so.
Okay.
Now the question is, do you have him above Filipowski?
No. I have
Because
to
I
look
do.
to see that. Oh.
I have them in the same grade, same range, but like I think I trust him a little bit more than Filipowski, specifically on the defense side of the ball. I think he's a better defensive player, but I think he's just a little bit more polished than Filipowski. Maybe that's just being a year older,
Mm.
but when I watch him shoot, I think he's a better shooter than Filipowski. Like I just think he processes things a little bit faster.
A better shooter than Flip?
I'd have to think about it. I think so.
I don't think so at all.
What did Flip shoot this year?
Flip shot. Let me get you the numbers.
Give me the number.
Filipowski shot 35% from 3, but he was way better in the mid range than
I'm not buying it. Filipowski shot 67% at the free throw line, 35% from 3.
This is not a Filipowski video.
I'm not. Filipowski is no. I'm good with taking Holmes over Filipowski.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
gonna stand by that. I'll stand.
Let's quickly do our Missi comps.
Yes.
How do you? I can't pronounce.
These were tough.
Sorry.
Yves Missi.
I actually have. I think I really like my comps actually.
Go ahead.
Clint Capella.
Okay.
I think that's the type of player he can become. And then Ian Mahimi.
Jan Mahimi.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's French.
Yami.
I don't expect you to know it. I have down. I think the highest upside for him is Nick Claxton, but he's gonna have to be at a lot
But
better
see, I don't
defensively
see
to
I
reach
don't
that
see the
level.
I mean, I know he's fluid and stuff, but I don't
I
see the
think he's
mobility.
mobile enough
I don't
to
see the
get there.
mobility that Nick Claxton has, though.
Claxton was a much better defensive rebounder out of college, a much better
Yeah.
shot blocker out of college. Like he was more developed out of college. Now he did have another year, but like Claxton is, if we're talking upside, that's a starter in the NBA
Oh yeah, like good player.
and a really good defender. So
Yeah.
like that's where I think he's gonna have to do it. Other than that, Miles Plumlee,
Oh,
and then I
brutal.
have Jordan Bell, which throwback name for y'all, the Warriors. Extremely switchable guy. Like I don't know if he'll be that switchable, but he has to get to that level to me. He has to be
Yeah.
that type of
Well, because that's what you're selling. You're selling the defense because the offense is going to take so long to
like
get
even
there.
not switching like 1 through 5 per se, but like if a 4, 3, like almost 2 through 5, I need Missy to be able to like
Yeah.
stay in front of guys at
Yeah.
that level because the shot blocking alone is not selling me. The rebounding alone is not selling me. So, and obviously the offense, I'm not buying. So you have to be elite at something here. So, all right, that's all we got for y'all today. Hope y'all enjoyed the video. Leave us a comment and below who you got, Holmes, Missi. Where do you think they should get drafted? Do you want your team to draft him? All that good stuff. Leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't already. We will talk to y'all later.